Hey, welcome to this week's video where I pick up where I was supposed to leave off, and I just took off the turbo and the turbo manifold, and we're going to look at the gasket and if it was really leaking and all that shit. So you should be able to see right off the bat, right there, there's a discoloration. We'll look at the gasket first and try to get this thing to focus. Okay, well, you can see some discoloration right in the center of the screen. Right there, you can also see a crack, and it's pretty warped. And you can see kind of rust color right there. And you can't feel, but see if you can see it. You can see the warp there, and then it looks thinner as well. So, pick the manifold up, and right there, I don't know why this thing is having problems focusing. Now you can see, right here is actually where we melted the flange, because exhaust gas was just going right above the gasket and going across here. You can see how it ate it out. So I've had the boost leak for a while, and this is a good thing that we're fixing it. So what I'm going to do to this is, you can see this is exhaust runner 1 right here, and you can see right there exhaust gas is hitting the flange instead of going in the tube. Number 2 is hitting right there. Number 3 is hitting here, and number 4 is right here. You can see the exhaust right there. So we're going to port this manifold. The plan is to port that manifold, and then we're going to weld the hole shut. And instead of putting another gasket in there, because they just continuously fail, it's a big problem with the T25s. I'm even using these little lockers for the bolt, where you push this up to lock it here, and it's just burning my gasket. So instead of dealing with this anymore, I'm just going to weld it, because as you can see behind me, if you go back to another video, I already welded the downpipe to the turbine housing. So what's the difference welding the turbo manifold to the turbine housing as well? So I'm going to take that to work tomorrow, and we're going to port that, and then I'll weld 2 of the 4 bolt holes shut, and use the other 2 as alignments, and then pretty much weld those permanently as well when I weld it. Okay guys, next day. Sorry it's kind of loud. I've started porting the manifold. You can see the black is where I need to port it. So while I was doing this, yeah, there you go. You can see there's a crack. It's actually almost all the way around that runner. So I've got to repair this crack. It runs from here all the way to the other side. So I've got to weld all that. There's another crack here. So we're going to port this at the shop today, and then early morning we're going to go and weld this at my shop. So just a little update. We'll go from this shot. So I used a die grinder, and then sanding wheel. And yeah, you can see there was like an inclusion in there, so now there's a hole there, so now I gotta weld that shut and then come in and regrind this. But all the rests are good. So that sucks, but whatever, we'll weld it. Definitely not my best welds, but it'll definitely do. So we filled all that up, so I just need to clean it back up, get it smooth. It should be okay. Went out and I also welded that, and then welded that little crack as well. So the only crack we have left is that one. We'll do that back at my shop. I have a smaller cup and smaller machine, so hopefully it will be a little easier. But we're going to sand that one more time, and then we'll pick back up in my shop. Okay, back at the shop, and out here in the light, give you another look. Just clean that up. We'll put the gasket on it. You can see where I welded it came in just a little bit. Here's the real thing you can see out here. Look at that fucking crack. I'm losing just a little bit of boost out of that, and then this right here, and then finally this, where it actually burned through. And there was a crack here too. I didn't really clean this one before I welded it, so it really didn't want to weld. So, fits a lot better. We shouldn't have near as much restriction in the center tube. So hopefully, so what was happening before is anything over 20 psi, I'm just not gaining power. Which I think what the problem was is it was, before it was ported, it was coming and hitting that part and having to go this way, and then the air's hitting it and going that way, but it's creating a restriction right at the mouth of it. And so I think that's what it was. We were just putting more pressure in the turbine housing and manifold, and you're just not running efficient at that point, and you're losing more horsepower than you're gaining by adding the more positive pressure. So hopefully with porting that, we'll be able to fix that. That being said, I don't know if I want to run more than 20 psi on this turbo setup. But as you can see, we got quite a bit to weld, so I've got to clean that now. We've got the turbo here, and the plan is still to weld this to this, because we're not going to fix that, and it's just going to keep happening, and I'm done with it. As y'all can see, the downpipe's already welded to the turbine housing, so we're not really doing anything else that I haven't already done. I'm not ruining it more. But enough talking. I'm gonna start welding this thing, and I'm just gonna focus on it. We'll show you the results after. Be prepared for the worst welds you'll ever see on this channel. I blobbed it in there, and then I realized I'm just not going to be able to get in there. I got all the way up there, but I just can't. But if you notice earlier, that was a hole, and it actually sucked up from all the welding. So that's the only part I couldn't weld. But there's not really any light coming through, so eventually it will blow out again, it will crack again, but this way we can go to TogeCon. I can run this turbo manifold setup for the rest of the year, and then Christmas time we're going to do G25 550 or 650, I haven't decided yet, V-band 72 turbine housing and 3-inch downpipe. We're going to make our, I'm probably going to buy an ISR Schedule 40 manifold, and then make it like this. Cut this off of this manifold, put it on the new one, and then it comes T25 as well. Chop that off and put a V-band on it. Then we're going to buy a new core and a new radiator, and the V-mount isn't going to change really. I'm going to reuse everything I've I have mocked up. It's just I'm getting new radiator because it's been 9 years. Same with the intercooler, going to get a new intercooler. That way we can get rid of these so it looks better. Still going to have the same 3-inch there and kind of dive in like it's doing. And then I think we're going to change this up a little bit. I'm not for sure. But yeah, we're going to revamp all this, get it new with a new turbo on there. Oh, we're going to make some jam. But the next thing is we got to grind this to clean it up and carefully grind that part so it doesn't go in the turbine. And then we're going to bolt it together and weld it. And buddy Anthony, we did his CD009 transmission on the channel. He's about to pull up, so we'll end the clip now. And it's update time. We got those welded. Now I've got to grind them down flat. Same with on the turbo. So we're going to use these two lines, or two holes, to actually line the turbo up. Then we'll just tighten the bolts, and I'll weld the bolts to the housing so they don't go anywhere. Or one's a nut, which is on this stud, and then the other one's a bolt. Like I said, we'll just weld them. That way they don't back out. And it's always better to do this than to just freehand weld it, because at least we know it's where it's supposed to be. And she's done welding. There was a spot there that I had to fill because it was just porosity, but she's still pretty hot. Oh look, there's a hole right there I gotta fill. So I gotta fill that real fast. We went all the way around there. That one was pretty damn hard. I don't see how I got... Hello? Okay, next day. The turbo has cooled. I've quickly cleaned the surface off of the flange. I got the new gasket, and I've copper sprayed this side. This is our old gasket. It was still good, but we got a better one. And I've roughly cleaned the surface of the head as well. And you can see how much you can port the VE head, because that's where the bottom of the gasket lines up. So you make these fuckers huge if you wanted to. I don't know if there would be any benefit, because bigger the hole, the smaller the hole, the more velocity, the bigger the hole, the slower the speed. So, you know, if it's in a small hole and then goes to a big hole and then comes back to a small hole, the diameter of the pipe, that actually will slow it down, the bigger part of the pipe, because air would move slower through there than the smaller piece. Anyway, we got all that prepped and we're just going to put it back on. So, use some YouTube magic. Gotta love YouTube magic. So it's all back together. I didn't heat wrap the exhaust just because we've got, you know, 6 months until I really want to change everything, and that's a lot of fucking work, and it's a lot of work to cut it back off, although I wouldn't have to because I'm not reusing. I'm being lazy. I didn't want to do it, so that's what you get. Hopefully our heat shield and the hood vent prevents it from heat soaking the brake setup. But now I'm going to try to bleed the brakes again. I just, by myself, I just can't get it to bleed correctly. So maybe I'll wait and call a friend later. But there's a car meet tonight, so may record some of that. If not, this is the end. We'll see you next time.